The hostess blocked my path. "You're not on the list, sir. I could see my grandson through the window. 8 years old, my best friend celebrating with 80 strangers. I wasn't invited to his birthday party, but 2 weeks ago, I'd written the check. $6,500. Every plate, every drink, every balloon." My daughter cashed it, then erased me. So, I pulled out my phone and made one call. Before we dive in, I want to say thank you for being here. If this story resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and please tell me where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories like this one. A quick note, while this story contains fictionalized elements created for storytelling purposes, the lessons about family boundaries and self-worth, those are very real, and I hope they speak to you. The hostess at Riverside Grill smiled the way people do when they're about to deliver bad news, professional, apologetic, practiced. I'd been coming to this restaurant for 20 years. I celebrated Kimberly's college acceptance here, her engagement, the day she told me she was pregnant with Ethan. The mahogany walls and warm lighting used to feel like family. Tonight, standing in the marble foyer in worn khakis and my best navy polo, the one Kimberly once said made me look distinguished, I felt like an intruder. Through the glass doors of the private dining room, I saw my grandson, 8 years old today, wearing a crisp blue button-down. I didn't recognize balloons bobbed near the ceiling, silver and blue spelling numbers. Around him, nearly 80 people laughed, their voices muffled by the glass. I didn't recognize most of them. The hostess, Ashley, checked her clipboard again. "I'm sorry, sir. The party is at capacity. Exactly 80 guests, and your name isn't on the list." The compass in my pocket suddenly felt heavy. I'd spent last Saturday polishing the brass, checking the engraving again. "Always find your way home, Gramps. I plan to give it to Ethan before dinner and watch his face light up." "There must be a mistake," I said. "I'm Ethan's grandfather. I wrote the check for this party, $6,500, 2 weeks ago." Ashley's smile faltered. She glanced toward the room. "Let me get Mrs. Barrett. Mrs. Barrett." 6 months ago, Kimberly went back to using her married name exclusively right after Merrick made senior partner. I should have noticed the slow eraser. I watched Ashley whisper to my daughter at the head table. The color drained from Kimberly's face. Merrick rose calmly, wine glass sat down with care. Kimberly followed, hesitant. The door opened. Laughter spilled out. Ethan stood near the gift table, distracted. He hadn't seen me yet. "Dad," Kimberly said, not meeting my eyes. "This is awkward." "I gave you $6,500, I replied evenly. The check cleared. "And I'm not on the guest list." Her hands twisted. Merrick's parents invited so many people from the firm, and we had to cap it at 80 because of the fire code, and I was the one you cut. Merrick's hand settled on her shoulder. "This party is about the children," he said smoothly. "Ethan's classmates from Crestwood Academy, families from the club, business associates who've become friends. I'm sure you understand." I did. Through the glass, I saw an adult guide Ethan toward the cake before he could look my way. I was the one who didn't fit, the retired firefighter with the small house, the old truck, the scarred hands, the embarrassment they'd erased. Kimberly was crying silently. I turned to Ashley. "Thank you for trying." Then I faced my daughter, the child I raised alone, worked 3 jobs for, proudly walked down the aisle. "I hope the $6,500 makes this party everything you wanted," I said calm and clear, "because that's all I have left to give." Her face went pale. I walked out into the June evening footsteps, steady, the compass heavy in my pocket. Behind me, voices murmured. Ashley's reflection in the glass showed sympathy and understanding. I didn't look back. Some losses announced themselves quietly, without shouting or spectacle. You simply recognize the moment you no longer belong, and you leave with what dignity you can carry, hoping time will teach them what absence truly costs in the years ahead. Eventually, I made it to my truck before the tears came. 15 minutes since I'd left the restaurant, yet it felt like a lifetime. My hands shook too hard to get the key into the ignition. The old Ford, 23 years together, sat alone in the far corner of the lot. Through the windshield, families walked toward Riverside Grill, dressed up, smiling, living the Saturday evening I thought was mine. I gripped the wheel and let myself break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears. For promises I could no longer keep. Margaret made me swear the night before she passed. Cancer took 8 months to steal her away, and on her last clear-headed evening, she made me promise, "Don't let Kimberly feel alone, Greg. Not ever. She's going to need you." For 22 years, I kept that vow. I worked 3 jobs to keep Kimberly in college, sold my father's vintage motorcycle, the one thing I love, to help pay for her wedding. I showed up for every milestone she allowed me to share. And tonight, she erased me. My phone buzzed. Kimberly's name lit the screen, then again, then an unfamiliar number. I watched the calls pile up and felt something shift inside my chest. She always does. Merrick's words echoed in my head. Casual, confident. She always gets over it, always forgives, always comes back. I called Frank. My hands were steady now. "Greg?" he answered immediately. 30 years of friendship. Told him everything. "What happened?" "They locked me out of Ethan's birthday," I said flatly. "I paid for it, Frank. My own grandson." Silence. "Then where are you?" "In the parking lot." "I'm okay, but I need to act now." Next, call Hawthorne Foster, my financial advisor, the man who helped me build Ethan's education fund, $200 at a time. "Hawthorne, I need to stop payment on a check, $3,700. "Gregory, it's Saturday." "I know. It has to be tonight," I explained. $6,500 total, $2,800 already cleared as a deposit. The remaining balance was still pending. "I'm also changing the education fund," I added. "Make it a trust. I'm the trustee. Kimberly can't touch it." $25,000, he said quietly. "For Ethan." "That's right. Whatever happens between me and my daughter, that money stays safe." "You're doing the right thing," Hawthorne said. "I'll handle it Monday." The tears were gone now. One more call. Riverside Grill. "This is Carlos." "Carlos, it's Gregory Crawford." "Gregory, I heard there was confusion at the door. There's a problem with the payment for the Barrett party." A pause. "What kind of problem?" "I'm stopping payment on the balance. You keep the deposit, but I'm not paying for a party I wasn't invited to." Carlos exhaled slowly. 20 years you've been coming here, and they shut you out." "Yes, then they don't get my service," he said without hesitation. "I'll suspend dinner immediately. You don't have to." "I remember who showed up when my mother was dying," Carlos said softly. "You did." The sky darkened from gold to blue as my phone kept buzzing. I ignored it. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was finished shrinking myself. I started the engine. The Ford rumbled to life. As I pulled away, Riverside Grill glowed behind me. Somewhere inside, my grandson was turning 8. I didn't know yet that he was standing on a chair, refusing to blow out his candles, calling for me, but I would soon. My house on Elm Avenue had never felt so empty. past 8:30 when I pulled into my driveway. The neighborhood was quiet, porch lights glowing warm in the summer dusk. Normal Saturday evening sounds, the kind I'd imagined hearing later tonight, maybe with Ethan chattering beside me about his presence. Instead, I was alone. I flipped on the kitchen light. My eyes went straight to the refrigerator, to the photos held by magnets shaped like fire trucks. There we were, Ethan and me, holding up a base we'd caught last July, his grin missing 2 front teeth, my arm around his shoulders. Next to it, Kimberly in her graduation gown, 22 years old. I'd worked 3 jobs that year to pay for it, worth every exhausted morning. Margaret should have been there. Cancer took her when Kimberly was 16, 8 months from diagnosis to the end. I'd promised her that last night, promised I'd take care of Kimberly, that our girl would never feel alone. I'd kept that promise for 22 years until tonight, when keeping it meant I was the one standing alone. When Ethan was born, holding him felt like getting a piece of Margaret back. Same dark eyes, same stubborn chin. A second chance. Last summer, we spent Saturday mornings in my garage. I taught him to use a hand plane, how to read wood grain. His small hands next to mine, sawdust smell between us. Gramps, how come you know how to make everything? Because my dad taught me, and his dad taught him. Now I'm teaching you. 2 months ago, Ethan drew me a picture. Crayons on construction paper as fishing. Stick figures with huge smiles. At the top, my hero, Grandpa Gregory. Kimberly brought it over, beaming. The next week, she mentioned Merrick made him take it down. Doesn't match the decor. That should have been my warning. Last Thanksgiving, Merrick forgot to invite me. I ate a frozen turkey meal alone. Then the Saturday visits started changing every week. Merrick scheduled Ethan's activities exactly when I'd normally come. Kimberly suggested Sundays. Then Sundays had conflicts too. I'd overheard Merrick once telling Ethan, "Grandpa's house is old and outdated, buddy. We're building you something better." Ethan's small voice. "But I like Gramps' house. It smells like cookies and wood." It wasn't accidents. It was a campaign, slow, methodical, erasing me one Saturday at a time. I walked to the garage. My workbench sat against the far wall, tools hanging where they'd always been. I'd built this bench with my father when I was 12. I opened the drawer where I kept sandpaper. There it was, folded carefully beneath the supplies, Ethan's drawing. My hand shook as I unfolded it. The crayons were bright, enthusiastic. The stick figure me wore a firefighter's helmet. The stick figure Ethan held a fishing pole, both smiling. My hero. He'd hidden it. My 8-year-old grandson had hidden his love for me like it was something shameful, something he had to protect. "No more," I said to the empty garage. "I'm done making myself invisible." From inside the house, my phone started buzzing. Multiple calls, rapid fire. I looked at the screen. Unknown numbers. Kimberly's name. More unknown numbers. I let them all go to voicemail. Whatever they wanted to say, I wasn't ready. Not yet. I didn't know that one of those calls was from someone I'd never expected. Someone who'd been inside that restaurant tonight. Someone who'd seen everything and decided she couldn't stay silent. But I'd find out soon enough. Tonight, I just held my grandson's drawing and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Before I tell you who arrived at 9 p.m. with evidence that exposed the entire manipulation, type home in the comments so I know you're still here. I need to see my community. One note. The story moving forward contains dramatized elements created to illustrate real family dynamics. If that doesn't resonate with you, feel free to exit now. No hard feelings. The knock came just past 9 o'clock. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of a figure on my porch, designer blazer, expensive haircut. Vanessa. I opened the door. Slowly. Vanessa, this is unexpected. In 5 years of Kimberly's marriage, Merrick's mother had been to my home exactly twice. Both times she'd commented on something, the outdated fixtures, my quaint furniture. Tonight she looked different, uncertain. "May I come in, Gregory?" No imperious tone, just a question. I stepped aside. She sat on my couch, designer handbag clutched like a shield, and for the first time since I'd known her, didn't glance around with polite disdain. What happened tonight was wrong, direct, no preamble. I waited. I didn't know you weren't on the guest list until I saw you at the door. I asked Kimberly about it while Merrick was dealing with the restaurant situation. Her voice tightened. She told me you'd agreed not to come, that you weren't feeling well. Now, I was never told about the party, Vanessa. Kimberly cashed my $6,500 check 2 weeks ago. Her face went white. Oh, God. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. You need to see this. She turned the screen toward me. A text thread between Merrick and Kimberly. Plans to exclude me. Discussions about phasing out my visits. Merrick's words about my home beyond depressing. How they needed to limit Ethan's exposure to lower expectations. Kimberly's shorter responses, but always agreeing. I handed the phone back. Something inside me had gone very still. I'm showing you this because it won't get better, Vanessa said. Merrick will keep pushing you out, and Kimberly will let him. Why are you doing this? He's your son. He's my son, and I love him, but I don't like who he's become. Her voice broke. Merrick did this to his own grandfather, my ex-husband's father, cut him off completely, said the old man was embarrassing to his colleagues. She swallowed hard. His grandfather passed away alone in a nursing home. Merrick didn't even attend the funeral. I forgave him, then thought he'd change, but he hasn't. He's gotten worse. She stood, then stopped. The party ended badly. Once the restaurant suspended service guests started leaving, but that's not the worst part. She told me about Ethan, how he'd realized I wasn't there, how he'd asked Kimberly why. Your grandson looked at his mother and said, "But Gramps is family. He's more important than those people." My throat tightened. Then he climbed on his chair in front of everyone and said, "This isn't a real birthday without Gramps." He pushed his cake away, refused the candles. I could see it, my brave boy. Then he yelled at Merrick, "You're mean. You made Gramps go away." The tears came. I couldn't stop them. "Your grandson fought for you," Vanessa said softly. "He's 8 years old, and he knew what was right." After she left, I sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about courage, about how an 8-year-old had more of it than I'd shown in years. I didn't know then that the hardest conversation was still 3 days away, that Kimberly would show up at my door, broken and desperate. But tonight, I knew one thing. My grandson had just taught me that it's never too late to stand up and fight. The next morning, Frank showed up at my doorstep with his wife, Linda, and a pan of homemade biscuits. I hadn't slept much, kept seeing Ethan standing on that chair, kept hearing Vanessa's words. When the bell rang just after 9, I was sitting at my kitchen table with cold coffee, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Frank took one look at me. We heard. Greg. Small town. Word travels. Linda didn't wait for an invitation. She walked straight in, set the covered dish down. "You're not going through this alone." Within minutes, she had plates out, biscuits split, and buttered jam spread thick. The smell of warm bread filled my kitchen, normal, comforting. "Sit," Linda said firmly. "Eat." I tried to hold it together, but when Linda put her arms around me, something inside me collapsed. I broke. Right there in my kitchen, crying into this woman's shoulder while Frank's hand gripped my arm. "Let it out, brother," Frank said quietly. So I told them everything. The restaurant, the check, Merrick's dismissal, Vanessa's visit, the text, and Ethan standing up for me when no one else would. Linda's face went red. "That man," she said, catching herself before using stronger language. Frank leaned forward. "Greg, you remember when I lost my job 7 years ago, when we didn't know how we'd make the mortgage?" I nodded. "You showed up with groceries, helped me find work, never asked for anything back." His voice was rough. "We're here now. Whatever you need." Linda wiped her eyes. "Frank told me Ethan talks about you constantly at his Little League games. Every week, my Gramps the firefighter. That child adores you. I hadn't known he still talked about me that much." Mrs. Patterson from next door appeared at my screen door. She'd seen Frank's car. At 78, she didn't miss much on Elm Avenue. "Gregory, I've watched you with that boy for years. You're a wonderful grandfather." She pointed toward Pinecrest Manor. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth twice what that son-in-law will ever be." Her words hit harder than I expected. Around 11, Carlos called. "Gregory, the restaurant community talks. Word's gotten around about what Merrick pulled. That's not how family treats family." He paused. "You need anything? A reference helps someone to talk to you. Call me." After they left, I sat on my front porch watching the neighborhood. Kids playing basketball, Mr. Johnson washing his car, Sunday sounds. I'd been so focused on not losing Kimberly and Ethan that I'd forgotten I had a whole life. Friends who'd known me for decades, neighbors who saw my worth, a community that valued me. Linda's words kept coming back. "Maybe it's time you stood up for yourself." Frank's voice, "You deserve respect, Greg, from everyone, including your daughter." "You're right," I told them. "I do." For 3 days, I heard nothing from Kimberly. No calls, no texts, just silence. I spent that time with Frank, reconnecting with old firefighter buddies, fixing things around my house. I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming myself. Wednesday afternoon, 4 days after the party, Kimberly's car pulled into my driveway. I'd been expecting her, but watching her sit there for a full minute before getting out, I realized something. I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next, but I was ready to stand my ground. When Kimberly stepped out of her car that Wednesday afternoon, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, yoga pants, and an oversized t-shirt instead of designer clothes. She looked small, broken. I opened the door before she knocked. We stood there across my threshold. I saw my little girl, the one who crawled into my bed during storms, who held my hand at her mother's memorial, and I saw a stranger who chose appearances over love. "Can I come in, Dad?" I stepped aside. She entered the living room and stopped twisting her hands. "I'm sorry," she said, breaking instantly. Then she collapsed, sobbing right there. Every instinct screamed to hold her, to fix it like I always had. I didn't move. I let her cry. I waited. It hurt, but it mattered. After minutes, she sank onto the couch. I sat across from her, not beside her. The space felt enormous. "I don't know what happened to me," she whispered. "I don't know who I became." She explained how it started after Merrick's promotion. Small suggestions. He said we should spend time with his colleagues, for his career, for Ethan's future. Then it was that your house was small, that Ethan needed higher expectations. Her voice sounded hollow. Each thing alone made sense. Together, Dad, he was erasing you, and I let it happen. It was easier to agree than fight. Then I started believing it, that you didn't fit, that your life was less. The restaurant memory struck hard. You asked me what I was able to offer, Mom. She broke. I meant money, but I heard how cruel it sounded. Merrick was there. I couldn't take it back. You chose him, I said quietly. I chose fear, she cried. She took a breath. I begged him to let you come. We fought for 2 weeks. Then she whispered the truth. He said if I invited you, he'd divorce me and fight for full custody of Ethan. Everything went still. He threatened to take my son, she said. His lawyers, his money. He said I'd lose. I felt anger and understanding, not forgiveness. Not yet. So, you chose to lose me instead? She nodded, shaking. I thought I could manage both. But the visits faded. The invitations stopped. I told myself it was temporary. She looked at me until Saturday. You still chose, I said steadily. You chose his threat over your father. I know. Silence filled the room. Sunlight drifted through dust, and nothing felt normal. She sat there, shoulders shaking, waiting for me to speak, to absolve her. I felt every year of my life in that pause, the promise I'd made to her mother, the cost of keeping it. Love didn't vanish, but trust had cracked. I needed her to understand that forgiveness wasn't a switch, that consequences had weight. I told her I loved her because that was true. But love didn't erase what happened. It only meant we would face it honestly, without lies or fear. No matter how painful rebuilding might be for all of us. Time, patience, and accountability would decide whether we could find our way back to each other, or whether some distance would remain permanent between us in the years ahead together. Then she wiped her face. There's something else about Ethan after you left. Her voice shattered. He thinks you don't love him anymore. That's when my tears finally came. I had cried twice since Margaret passed, once at her memorial when they closed the casket, and I understood I would never see her face again. Once when Ethan was born, when they placed that tiny squirming bundle in my arms, tears of joy and fear, knowing I had already lost so much and now had something new to love. That Wednesday afternoon, sitting in my living room, I cried a third time, not because Kimberly betrayed me, not because Merrick erased me, but because somewhere across town, my 8-year-old grandson believed his grandfather had stopped loving him. Margaret made me promise the night before she died. Take care of Kimberly, she whispered, her hand cold in mine. Don't let her feel alone. I kept that promise for 26 years, and somehow, in doing so, I let Ethan feel abandoned. Tell me what happened at the restaurant, I said steady, despite the tightness in my chest. Everything. From the moment the service stopped, Kimberly wiped her eyes with her sleeve. She looked as exhausted as I felt. Carlos came to our table around 7 o'clock, she said. Polite. Calm. He said there was a payment issue, and service had to pause. She swallowed. Merrick exploded, yelled, demanded a manager. Carlos told him he was the manager. And Ethan, he didn't understand. He kept asking where his cake was, where you were. Her voice cracked. He'd been watching the door all night, Dad. Every time someone walked in, he thought it was you. The compass on my mantel caught the fading light. Always find your way home. Margaret had given it to me before she got sick. I'd planned to give it to Ethan that night. When did he realize I wasn't coming? When I told him, her hands twisted together. I lied, she whispered. I told him you were sick. He said, Grandpa would have come anyway, unless he didn't want to. 8 years old, already learning that love can disappear. The party collapsed after that, she continued. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't open gifts. People started leaving. Then Ethan stood on his chair, stood up in front of everyone. He said, "This isn't a real birthday without Grandpa Gregory." "Somebody made him leave," she sobbed. "He threw cake on the floor. He screamed at Merrick, said he was mean, said, 'He made you go away.' It took 3 adults to get him out." My chest felt hollow. Later, putting him to bed, he asked if he'd done something wrong. She said quietly, "If that's why you didn't come." He told me he hid the compass you gave him. He was scared Merrick would throw it out like the drawing. He checks it every night, reads the words, and he thinks you don't want him to find his way back to you anymore. I couldn't breathe. All I saw was my grandson in the dark, clutching that compass, believing he was unloved. Margaret's voice echoed again. Don't let her feel alone, but I'd let Ethan feel worse than alone. "This changes," I said firm, despite the tears. "Now, today. But it happens on 3 conditions." Kimberly nodded frantically. "Anything." "We'll get to that," I said. "But first, you call Ethan right now, and you put me on the phone with my grandson." I had never set real boundaries with my daughter before. I had always just given time, money, forgiveness. I kept giving until there was nothing left. That ended that night. 3 conditions, I said, my voice steady. First, Ethan comes here every Thursday afternoon. Just him and me. No Merrick, no interruptions, no excuses. 3 to 7 every week. Kimberly nodded, wiping her face. "Yes, I promise." Second, family therapy. You, me, and Ethan. Not couples counseling. Family therapy with a professional for the damage done. "I'll find someone," she whispered. "I'll make the appointments." Third, money. She flinched. I stopped payment on $3,700, but I lost $2,800 in deposits and $35 in fees. Total loss, $2,835. I paused. "But the price is $3,200. The extra $400 is tuition for this lesson." Her eyes widened. "You'll pay me back $500 a month, not because I need it, because you need to learn my love requires respect." She broke down. "I'll pay it back. I'll get a job. One more thing," I said quietly. "A consequence. If you or Merrick ever make me feel less than again, exclude me, hide me, treat me like I don't belong, I'm done. No second chances." Silence settled between us. "I'm 65, I said. "I don't have time for people who don't value me, even family." She hugged me. I allowed it, but didn't fully return it. Acceptance isn't absolution. That takes time. That was 8 months ago. Within 3 weeks, Kimberly had separated from Merrick. She and Ethan moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Vanessa covered the deposit. The ultimatum was clear. Merrick could choose therapy and real change, or lose his family. He chose therapy. Kimberly got a part-time job as a physical therapy aide. $500 every month, always early. The final payment came 6.5 months in. Thursday afternoons became sacred. At first, Ethan was cautious, testing if I'd disappear again. I stayed patient. By week 3, he brought out the compass. I don't have to hide this anymore. We baked cookies, built birdhouses, fished at the pond. One afternoon, he hugged me and whispered, "I missed you so much, Grandpa." I barely held myself together. Family therapy was hard. Ethan spoke about feeling abandoned. Kimberly had to listen. I learned how to trust again. Some sessions ended in tears, others in silence, but slowly we rebuilt. I've seen Merrick 3 times in 8 months. Polite, distant. Vanessa told me he's in individual therapy, her condition enforced by the separation. "Slow," she said, but he's trying for the first time. Maybe he's actually trying. Vanessa and I meet for coffee once a month. We're not close, but we both love Ethan. Sometimes that's enough. I started living for myself. I teach woodworking now, joined Frank's book club, poker nights with old firehouse friends. I stopped waiting to be invited into Kimberly's life. I saw my house differently, not small-minded, not outdated, lived in, 30 years of memories. Enough. I am enough. Last Thursday, Ethan said, "Grandpa, my 9th birthday's coming." I know. Can I have it here? Just family? You? Me? Mom? Dad? If he behaves, and Grandma Vanessa. No fancy place, just us. My eyes burned. That's what you want? The best birthdays are with you. Kimberly stood in the driveway, crying. I thought about the pain, the boundaries, the rebuilding. I think I said, "That sounds perfect." What I didn't know was that Ethan's 9th birthday would bring one more unexpected chance to heal, one that would test everything we'd rebuilt and remind me that boundaries don't end love. They give it a chance to survive, grow stronger, and finally become something honest, lasting, and safe for all of us. On Ethan's 9th birthday, I woke up in my own bed, in my own house on Elm Avenue, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. A year ago, I'd stood outside Riverside Grill, humiliated. Today, I was preparing a party in my home. Ethan had chosen this, had chosen me. We decorated Thursday, hand-drawn banner, "Happy 9th birthday, Ethan." He'd added another, "Best grandpa ever." We cleared the garage, borrowed chairs from Frank, ordered pizza, pepperoni, and cheese. Vanessa brought cake from the neighborhood bakery, simple chocolate with blue frosting. 2 p.m. Ethan arrived with Kimberly. "Grandpa, can I help?" We sat up together. Guests arrived. Frank and Linda, Vanessa, Mrs. Patterson, 2 friends from baseball, 10 people total. I counted, remembering 80 strangers last year. This felt full, complete. Laughter stories. Ethan showing friends his projects. Frank told old firefighter stories. Ethan glowed with pride. At 3:30, a knock. Merrick stood at the door. Silence. No one expected him. Different jeans and polo, not a suit, holding a gift, looking nervous. "Gregory, can I talk to you?" Ethan stepped behind me. "I need to say this in front of everyone," Merrick said, stepping inside. Everyone watched. He sat down, the gift, looked around. "I need to apologize publicly." His voice shook. "Gregory, I was wrong, completely wrong. I was cruel, controlling. I let ego destroy what mattered." He glanced at Vanessa. "I did to you what my father did to his dad. My grandfather passed away alone because Dad was too important to be associated with him. I swore I'd never be like him, but I became worse. You never did anything but love Ethan, but I pushed you out, made Kimberly push you out, made my son think his grandfather didn't love him." He knelt before Ethan. "Buddy, I hurt Grandpa, hurt Mom, hurt you. That was wrong. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to be better. I don't know if I can fix everything, but I'm trying." Ethan looked at me. "Grandpa, do you forgive Dad?" Everyone waited. "I'm learning to, Ethan. Forgiveness takes time. It's something you do every day. But yes, I'm trying. We're all trying." Ethan pulled out the compass I'd given him. "Always find your way home, Grandpa." He held it up. "Grandpa gave me this. When I was sad, I looked at it. I knew Grandpa loved me. The compass always pointed home." He looked around. "We're all home now, together, right?" My eyes filled happy tears this time. "That's right, buddy. We're all home." Ethan hugged me, then pulled Merrick and Kimberly in. Not perfect, but healing. Later, after everyone left, Ethan said, This was my best birthday ever. Grandpa, better than a fancy restaurant, way better, because you were here, because everyone who matters was here. That night on my porch, I reflected, I'm enough, not because of dollars or possessions, but because I loved unconditionally, because I showed up, because I know my worth. Ethan taught me that, a 9-year-old who chose love over appearances, who stood on a chair and demanded his grandfather, who knew what truly matters. 10 people instead of 80, garage instead of fancy restaurant, but Ethan called it his best birthday ever, and he meant it. Yesterday, Ethan said he wants to help plan next year's party. We'll do friendship bracelets, Grandpa, a craft station in the garage. Make sure there's enough supplies for you, too. You're not just helping. You're the guest of honor in my own home for my grandson's birthday, exactly where I belong. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I believed it. Looking back now, I see how close I came to losing everything that mattered. Don't be like I was. Don't wait until you're standing outside a locked door to realize your worth isn't measured by what you can give, but by who you are. God teaches us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Yet, I spent years believing I had to earn love through my wallet. The Lord reminds us to set healthy boundaries, yet I gave until there was nothing left. And Scripture tells us that forgiveness is a journey, not a destination, something I learned the hard way through 8 months of painful healing. These grandpa stories aren't just about birthday parties or family drama. They're about recognizing that God has already declared you valuable, regardless of how others treat you. My grandson Ethan understood what I'd forgotten. Real love doesn't need fancy restaurants or 80 guests. It needs presence, respect, and people who truly see you. If you're watching this and feeling invisible in your own family, hear me. You're enough. Set those boundaries. Demand that respect. God didn't create you to be erased from the lives of those you love. So many grandpa's stories have been shared in the comments, and they've moved me deeply. Your grandpa's stories remind me that we're not alone in these struggles, that families everywhere are learning what truly matters. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment telling me what lesson hit home. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. We're building a community where everyone's story matters. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I'm grateful you were here. A gentle reminder, the stories ahead contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content doesn't suit you, feel free to explore other videos that better match your preferences. Your comfort matters, and there's no judgment in choosing what's right for you.